So I am still in my hotel room in Madrid, but before I left, I wanted to talk a little bit about Wooldreamers and to just do a bit of an intro and explain what I saw at the mill and how it differs from Irish mills. So I've gone to quite a few Irish mills and visited several of them multiple times, particularly Donegal yarns. So that's my main basis for kind of comparing or looking at the difference in how mills operate. If you've been with me for visits to the Irish mills before, you will know that the way they operate is they will get the fleece in already prepared, pre-prepared, it's been scoured, it's clean, and then they begin the milling process. So they use a worsted woolen spun milling process, work it through. Some of it, the fleece is dyed beforehand. Sometimes it's just gone through with undyed fleece when it's dyed afterwards, and then they finish off the yarn at the end. So that's generally speaking how the Irish yarn mills operate. They don't do the scouring, that is outsourced because there's no scouring facilities in Ireland, and they bring in but they actually go all the way through and actually do the dyeing at the very end. So Wooldreamers are kind of slightly shifted, and their way of operating is a little bit different with a few layers of stuff going on. The first thing I didn't realize is Wooldreamers is kind of as it sounds. It's a dream, it's a wool dream, it's aspirational, and it's the direction they're moving in. But the entire business isn't based like this. They've still got a more industrial commercial side. They're gradually trying to move a little bit closer to kind of what they're doing with the Galway wool, and really building up the breed, re-establishing it, and ensuring that farmers get a fair price. But the difference with Wooldreamers is they're shifted in the other direction. So when we went to the village that they're in, you go through, and the first section of their mill visit is their scouring facility. And this is something that we haven't seen in Ireland. The wool that they're starting with is a merino wool as well. And it's particularly important for them because merino had originally originated here in Spain, and it got exported to New Zealand and to Australia, and Wooldreamers are hoping to re-import it into Spain and begin the process of really improving the quality of the merino and building the breed up and up again. A lot of the wool industry here also seems to suffer from the same problems that we have in Ireland, where the price of the wool is very low and farmers are just not encouraged to breed for the wool. So they're doing something quite similar to what we're starting to see happen in Ireland with the building up of the value of wool and the quality of wool to go with that. So because they do the scouring here in this facility outside of the town, what they begin with is wool sorting. So they get all of the fleeces in. They put them up on the sorting table first of all, where as they're going through the sorting, that first part gets rid of some of the initial debris. So the dirt falls through, and it means that it's like some of the initial stages of the dirt. And then the next part is where they can spread it out and they pull off the edges. So the rough edges, the sides, they take all of that off. So there's actually a good bit of the fleece lost at this stage, just pulling it all off to ensure that the quality of the wool that they're left with is really good. All of those parts that they pull off, normally that's a waste product. It might perhaps even end up in landfill or burnt. So what they're starting to do is also begin using this in a organic fertilizer, where they're making fertilizer pellets from the leftover wool. So this is all a work in progress, and a lot of what you're seeing is the beginnings of new projects that they're bringing in to actually expand what they're doing and make it more sustainable, more circular. So this is the first stage, and then after that you move on and you start seeing the whole process of washing it and scouring it. But it's done very naturally here. You can see it's a big long chain of machines with steam coming off. I can only imagine how hot this must be in the summer, because we're here in February and you can see the steam coming off. So if you've got 40-degree heat outside, it must be baking inside here. But it goes through this series of troughs where it's very slowly agitated. It starts with some caustic soda and it moves it around, and the first parts are really dirty. As it moves on, they've got a natural vegetable soap and a little bit of heat, but not too much because you don't want to felt the wool. And you can see as it moves along, each stage is getting a little cleaner and a little more cleaner. And then when it comes out of the end, you can see it's the moisture is squeezed out, and they put it into this room that's basically like a giant room-sized tumble dryer. It is very, very cool. And the final stage is where it's blown out, and so it's separated, and this is the part that every knitter wants to be in because it just looks phenomenal with all of this fleece falling from the sky basically. So that's the first part of the visit that we had here. And up front you can also see that they have got just a very, very small herd of merino themselves, but most of their yarn, it comes in, it's commercial, it's yarn that's brought in, it's bought from other farmers, and they want to try and reach a point where they're paying the farmers a fair price for the wool, and the quality of that wool is improving and improving. After this, we went into the village to visit the part where they spin the wool, and then they go on and they've actually got a little shop in the front, their Wooldreamers Shop. I'm just back, still here in Madrid, to share the second half of the Wooldreamers story with you. So my Spanish is terrible, so I've got my pen and paper here so I can remember the name of the village. And my pronunciation, to anyone who speaks Spanish, I apologize. It's Mota Del Cuervo is the name of the village that the mill, the main part of the mill, is located. So when we went into the village, we parked around the big square, came around in the back, and a little bit different from some of the mills in Ireland. Probably the only one this is close to would be Cushendale, which is also within a village in Greg-na-Manna. So this one is, the mill itself is located within the village. The only part that was outside was the scouring facility, which is going to be one that produces a lot more waste products from the dirty water produced. So the mill itself is a lot closer to what I've seen before. It's on the smaller side, probably closer to some of the smaller mills in Ireland rather than a larger one like Donegal Yarns, which is a bigger facility. But as we go in, it looks very familiar. This part is closer to what I've seen within Ireland, where you've got initially all of your yarn going through the carding. And you can see here again that it's carded in the same way as you're going to see in Ireland, where you've got big long strips of yarn that look a bit like candy floss that are dropped down and drop back and forth like this. And they make a woolen spun yarn here as well, which means that it's carded first in this direction and then in the opposite direction. There's a few differences though here from in Ireland, because of the fact that you've got in Ireland some fleeces that's left undyed, like what you can see here, and then it's dyed afterwards, and other ones where you've actually got the fleece initially dyed, mixed together and creating a tweed yarn. Here in Wooldreamers, they have no dyeing facilities, they actually ship that out. So they've shifted the process where they do the scouring, they do the sorting of the wool, they even have their own flock of merino, but what they don't have is they don't have a dyeing facility. So it is taken off-site to dye. And something else that you'll see here is around the first part where they've got, it's initially kind of squeezed into those long strands of fleece that's just been carded, but it's got no integrity yet because it hasn't been twisted. But they actually sell them like that. They call them plates. And again, I want to get my name right. Manchelopis, Manchelopis, which you may have seen before. A little similar to lopi, but because it's made from a merino wool, so it's a slightly shorter staple length, it's very, very delicate. So there's no twist in it. It's just that strand that when you pull it like this, it comes apart. So if you're actually going to knit with that, you have to be very, very careful, because you have to twist it as you're knitting it so that you're adding the twist into the yarn, or you work it with a strand of mohair or something fine that you can hold along with it. So that's that's the biggest thing that they produce that you won't see elsewhere. And you can see basically what looks like big plates of wool lined up along, where normally within Ireland you're going to see cones and ones that are going to be twisted on afterwards. So once we walk our way down around that part of the facility, next we come over to the next section where they are just creating standard hanks of yarn after it's been twisted, and you can see the skeins are on, I believe it's called a mule, I could be wrong, but where they're twisted around and then they're tied off to create the hanks, and then those hanks are stacked. For them then it gets moved onwards and it's finished off somewhere else. And when they sell a lot of their yarns, like the Mota yarn, it's after it's been dyed, they finish it into balls with a paper ball band on it. They often do, and we discover this within the shop afterwards. So we walked through the weaving. They've got a weaving facility where they make scarves and some blankets and some other knitted items that you can then walk all the way back through the other side of the building into the shop. And the shop is where you'll see things that they experiment with. Some of them are breed specific yarns that it's once off and they're trying to support the development of specific breeds. Other times it's just trying out different fibres together. One of the ones we picked up that they only did in a small batch is a merino silk blend, which is really, really beautiful blend of yarn. So it's just a really interesting company, do some very, very good work and a lot of experimentation and trying things out. And it's not just always in yarn, as you saw from the creation of the organic fertilizer as well at the beginning of the process with their waste products. So if you're curious, go look up Wooldreamers. Their story is very interesting, and I suspect there will be lots more interesting to come from them in the years to come.